For 300 years, no one spoke of Earth anymore. The great powers of the galaxy erased its name from maps, from databases, from memory itself. The humans were gone, or so everyone believed. The last thing anyone ever heard from Earth was a scream across the stars, a broken message full of pain, fear, and fire. Then came silence. The silence lasted for centuries. New races rose across the stars. Empires were built, wars were fought, borders changed, and alliances formed and fell. But through it all, the galaxy did not forget one thing: the humans. No one dared say it out loud, but many remembered the stories. Stories of a strange species from a blue planet far on the edge of the Orion Arm. They were smaller, weaker, and younger than most galactic races. But they were fast learners, and they were dangerous. They fought with everything they had, and even when they lost, they made sure their enemies paid the price. When the last great war ended, humans vanished. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others whispered darker stories. Stories of betrayal by their own allies. But in official records, Earth was marked as a dead world. Ruined. A place no ship was allowed to visit. The Galactic Council declared it a red zone. No travel, no scans, no questions. Just silence. But silence cannot last forever. On the edge of the red zone, a small alien ship patrolled its usual path. The crew was tired, bored, and cold. The captain was an old Draven soldier with one eye and a tired voice. His name was Commander Varu, and he had spent 30 years patrolling dead space. His ship, the Shavara, was a slow model made for long missions, not for speed or war. There were 5 crew members on board. Zar, the nervous pilot. Mara, the young communications officer. Jock, the engineer who rarely spoke. And Urin, a tall insectoid alien who cleaned and cooked and sometimes sang in a voice like wind through glass. The patrol had been quiet for weeks. Then the signal came. It was weak, broken, but real. A pulse through space carrying something old and strange. Mara frowned as she tried to clear the noise. She boosted the gain, filtered the static, and then gasped. "This is human code," she whispered. Commander Varu turned slowly. "Human code?" he asked, his voice like gravel. "Yes," said Mara, looking pale. "It matches files from the archive. No one had looked at those files in 200 years. Are you sure?" 100%. Varu walked to the comm panel. "Send a message to command," he said. "Tell them we found a human signal in the red zone. Mark coordinates and send all data. Now." Mara nodded and sent the message. The ship floated quietly in space, surrounded by cold stars. They waited. Nothing happened for 10 minutes. Then the signal came again. Stronger this time. It sounded almost like a voice. Low, deep, and slow. The words were not clear, but they were human without doubt. Zar backed away from the controls, his hands shaking. "This place is cursed," he muttered. "We should leave now." But Commander Varu did not move. His eyes stared at the screen, his hand resting on the console. Something was coming through the dark. Something very old. The signal changed shape. It was no longer just a sound. It was data, a message encoded in the old human format. Mara began to decode it, but stopped halfway, her face turning white. "What is it?" asked Varu. "It says, 'We remember.'" Those 2 words made the room feel colder. Jock stepped out of the engine room, wiping oil from his hands. He looked at the crew, then at the blinking screen. "That's not possible," he said. "There are no humans left." But before anyone could speak again, the lights flickered. The ship shuddered as if something touched its hull. Zar looked at the sensors. "Nothing there," he whispered. But something was wrong. All systems began to slow down. The engines dropped to idle on their own. The doors refused to open. The lights dimmed to red. And then the main screen turned black. One word appeared in white text across the screen. "Return." The crew stood frozen. Then the screen blinked again. "You took everything." Then another blink. "Now we take it back." Before Commander Varu could react, the ship's gravity failed. The crew floated for a moment. The emergency lights kicked in, but flickered like candlelight in a storm. Varu reached for the manual override, but it did not respond. A low hum began to rise through the floor. Like a heartbeat, but wrong. It pulsed through the metal, through their bones. Mara screamed as her console sparked. Urin grabbed the wall and shouted something in his own language. And then, silence. Complete total silence. No systems. No lights. No movement. Outside the ship, nothing could be seen except empty space. The patrol ship Shivara no longer responded to calls. Command waited for their report for hours, then days, but no reply came. When they sent a search vessel weeks later, they found nothing. No ship, no wreckage, no beacon, just a single message floating in the void on the same channel. It played on repeat every hour. In perfect human voice it said, "We are not gone. We are coming." The council met in secret. Some said it was a trick. Others believed the humans had returned. But no one could explain how. No one could explain why. And no one could sleep. Because in the oldest corners of the galaxy, in the minds of the oldest races, there was one truth they all knew deep inside. When humans return, they do not come in peace. They come with memory. And memory never forgets. The message reached the Galactic Command on the 9th orbital cycle of Zurin Prime. It came with no warning, no source, and no ship ID. Just a short burst of ancient human code wrapped in static and silence. The translation department worked for hours trying to confirm the origin. Finally, one young translator named Kiva stood up with shaking hands and spoke. "It's human," she said, her voice thin and dry. The room fell silent. Her supervisor asked her to say it again. She nodded and repeated herself louder this time. "It's human code." One of the generals leaned forward across the black stone table and asked, "Is this a threat?" Kiva did not answer right away. She replayed the message on the central screen. A dark waveform spread across the display as the voice played. It was calm and slow and terrifying. "We remember." No other words. Just those two spoken in the deep tone of old Earth dialect. The message looped twice, then vanished into static again. The generals looked at each other, some frowning, some sweating, some whispering old names. One of them, Admiral Rusk, an old Corellian with white horns and sunken eyes, stood up slowly and walked to the archive panel. He entered a private code. The wall behind him opened, revealing a dark glass panel glowing with symbols from centuries past. The human files were never erased, only locked away. He turned to the room and said, "I was there when the last human ship disappeared." The others listened closely. He continued in a low voice. They didn't scream for help at the end. They screamed for revenge. Now their silence has ended. "The council must act," said another. "But how can we act against ghosts?" The discussion turned into argument, then into shouting. Old wounds opened again. Some wanted to send scouts. Some wanted to destroy the region entirely. Others wanted to pretend it never happened. While they argued, a second signal arrived. This time it was stronger, more detailed, encoded with an ancient Earth encryption that had not been used in 300 years. The voice was different now, clearer, louder, more angry. "You took everything. Now we take it back." The message repeated once, then again, then again. It refused to stop. Every time someone tried to shut it down, it returned through a new channel, a new frequency, a new code. It was everywhere. On deep space satellites, on mining stations, on cargo ships, and private networks. The message spread like fire, and with it came data packets. Old records thought lost. Battle maps, logged from the last war. Files showing betrayal by allies during the final human stand. Names of those who ordered the attacks. Names of those who watched and did nothing. Whole worlds named in the files. And each file ended with the same phrase. "We remember." The panic began within hours. The outer sectors of the galaxy entered alert mode. Ships turned away from the red zone. Border stations were shut down. Smugglers ran in the opposite direction. Even pirates refused to enter the dead space. The red zone had always been quiet. Now it was whispering again, whispering in a human voice. One ship captain, a veteran of the last border war, gave a simple statement to the press before locking down his station. "The dead should not speak," he said, "but they are speaking now, and we must listen." Meanwhile, on a forgotten moon near the edge of the galaxy, a small mining outpost received a signal from an unknown source. The outpost only had 12 workers and one outdated comm dish. They were not part of the main network and had no reason to fear anything. But the signal reached them anyway. The message appeared on every screen in the facility. Every monitor turned black and showed one sentence in bright white text. "We are near." The message stayed for 30 seconds, then vanished. The crew thought it was a prank until one of their storage drones exploded without cause. No energy spike, no warning, no error. Just sudden silence. The mining company sent a scout to investigate. The scout never returned. Only one image was sent before connection was lost. A human face in the shadows. Eyes glowing with cold fire. No one recognized the face. But the message below was clear. "We never left." Back at Galactic Command, the Council gathered in full. Leaders from all sectors joined the emergency session. For the first time in a century, the humans were the only topic. The air was thick with fear, not because the humans were powerful, but because they were angry. And nothing in the universe is more dangerous than angry humans who remember. Some of the younger council members asked why everyone was so afraid of an extinct race. They learned quickly. They were shown the war footage, the last battles of Earth's fleets, ships that burned like stars, weapons that could bend light, soldiers who fought without surrender, and a planet that vanished from all maps without leaving a grave. A vote was called. One side wanted peace contact negotiation. The other side wanted immediate force. A third group wanted silence. Pretend the messages never came and hope they stop. The vote failed. No one agreed, but all agreed on one thing. If the humans had returned, the universe would never be the same. Because humans do not forget. They do not forgive. And they never come back weak. The signals continue to spread. Each day, a new version. Each one more detailed. Now, they included images. Old Earth cities. Destroyed battlefields. Human flags burning and then rising again. And one final message broadcast across all sectors. Do not run. Do not hide. We are already here. The galaxy had laughed when humans vanished. Now, no one laughed anymore. It began with a shadow on the outer edge of the Telner system. A single ship appeared from nothing, large and dark and silent. No one knew where it came from. No signal, no ID, no response to hails. It drifted slowly toward the trade station orbiting Telner 3. The station's control room filled with alerts as sensors scanned the unknown ship. It was made of black metal with sharp lines and no visible engines. No heat signature, no life signs. And yet moved. The station commander, a three-eyed Draxon named Kolek, ordered full lockdown. All docking bays closed, all outgoing ships recalled, all defenses armed. The unknown ship did not slow. It came closer and closer until it stopped just outside weapon range. The crew held their breath waiting for something, anything. Then, without warning, a small object was ejected from the side of the black ship. The object spun slowly through space until it landed on the station's hull with a soft magnetic pull. No explosion, no signal, no sound. Just silence. Kolek ordered a scan. The object was a capsule made of the same black material as the ship. No seams, no doors, no known tech. A crew of 3 was sent outside in full suits to inspect it. As soon as they touched the capsule, it opened. Inside was a cube glowing with faint blue light. One of the crew reached out and took it carefully. They brought it inside, placed it in the lab, and activated the display. The cube projected a hologram into the air above. A symbol appeared first. A flag with stars and stripes. A symbol lost for centuries. A symbol of Earth. The crew stared in silence as the hologram changed. It showed a map, not of a planet, but of the galaxy, with one word glowing in the center. Return. Then faces appeared. Hundreds of faces. Aliens. Leaders. War criminals. People thought long dead. Each face was labeled with a name, a date, and a crime. Crimes committed during the Great War against humanity. Betrayals. Massacres. Deals made in secret. Then one final message appeared across the screen. We are not your past. We are your future. Prepare. And then the cube turned black. The ship outside vanished before their eyes. No warp, no jump, just gone. The news spread like wildfire. 100 stations across 3 sectors reported the same black ships. Each one delivered a capsule. Each capsule contained different files, but the message was always the same. We remember. Galactic media tried to control the panic, but it was too late. The people saw the truth. The humans were back, and they had not forgotten. In the old central worlds of the galactic core, an emergency meeting was called. Security forces doubled patrols across every sector. Elite squadrons were deployed near the red zone. But none of them saw a single human. They only saw the ships. Silent. Cold. Watching. Every time someone fired on a ship, it vanished before the shot landed. Every time someone tried to follow a ship, they lost it within minutes. And each time a ship left behind a capsule. Always the same shape, always the same message. You took everything. Now we take it back. On a desert moon, named Irokin, a retired general, found a capsule in his home. He had fought in the final battles against Earth. He had given the order to strike human escape vessels during their retreat. No one knew he had done it. It was buried deep in secret files. But the humans knew. His capsule contained a recording of his own voice giving the order. The general took his own life within hours. And again the message appeared on every screen in the moon colony. We remember. In the city towers of Quaron Prime, a crowd gathered outside the Senate building. They held signs showing the human flag. Some shouted for justice. Some shouted for war. Others stood in silence as the black ships hovered above them. Unmoving. Unreachable. The Senate sent out ships to engage, but they never reached the targets. Each ship was found hours later, drifting in space with no power and no memory of what happened. One pilot claimed he saw Earth before blacking out. He described a planet with blue oceans and green lands and massive cities of glass. But Earth was gone, destroyed centuries ago, wasn't it? The Council of Sectors gathered again, this time under heavy guard. Voices were loud and full of fear. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to apologize. Others wanted to strike first and end it before it began. But no one could agree because no one could find the humans. They were everywhere and nowhere. Black ships above mining stations, above colonies, above hidden military bases. Each one silent, each one sending files. Files that showed everything. Truths long hidden. The humans knew. They had always known. They had been watching, waiting, and now they were moving. But not to destroy. Not yet. They were reminding the galaxy of what was done. And who had done it. Every betrayal, every lie, every stolen treaty, every ambush, every silent vote. The records were perfect, complete, undeniable. A historian named Thalen said it best during a live broadcast. They do not want war. They want memory, because memory is power, and power is now in their hands. Across the stars, colonies began to question their leaders. Old alliances crumbled as secrets came to light. Planets closed their borders. Trade stopped. Fear spread like disease. And all the while the humans said nothing more. They sent no fleets, made no demands, offered no terms. Only their presence. Only their message. Only their memory. In the end, it was not weapons that shook the universe. It was silence. The kind of silence that comes after a scream. The kind of silence that means something terrible is coming. Not fast, not loud, but sure, and very, very close. Before the silence, before the return, before the whispers in the dark, there was a war. Not just any war, but the kind that burns itself into the bones of planets. A war that was never taught in schools, never remembered in monuments, never written in the stars. The war that ended with the fall of Earth. It began with peace, or at least what the galaxy called peace. Humanity had risen fast. Too fast. They built ships that traveled beyond light. They made deals with powerful empires, shared ideas, shared dreams, shared warnings. Some species welcomed them as friends, others feared them from the start. Because humans were different. They did not conquer for land, or gold, or glory. They explored, they adapted, they learned. But when they were attacked, they did not just defend. They pushed back harder. They burned through the lines of their enemies and planted flags in ashes. The galaxy noticed. The powerful grew nervous. They began to whisper in meetings, to plan in shadows, to speak of limits. Earth was growing, and growing means threat. The first betrayal came from the Quran. Once allies, they turned during a joint mission and wiped out a human colony on Vegas 6. They blamed pirates, but the proof said otherwise. Still, humans did not strike back. They asked for justice through the council. They received silence. The second betrayal came from the Red Hari. They poisoned the water supplies of a terraformed moon. Thousands died. Again, the humans held back. They sent envoys. They asked for truth. No answer. The third betrayal came from within. A small group of human governors made deals with alien empires. They sold secrets in exchange for power. Earth found out too late. The trap was set. The galaxy moved at once. A joint declaration was made. Humanity was labeled unstable, dangerous, a threat to galactic peace. A full blockade was enforced around Earth and all human systems. Trade stopped, communication stopped, all ambassadors were recalled. Then came the bombs. First on the outer colonies, then the inner systems, and finally Earth itself. It was not a single fleet. It was 20. Ships from every major race in the galaxy joined together in one strike. Their weapons were unmatched. Their numbers overwhelming. But Earth did not fall in silence. Human fleets met them in orbit and tore through their lines. Every inch was paid in blood. Every planet burned twice. The humans used weapons never seen before. Artificial stars born in battle. Ships made of living metal. Soldiers enhanced beyond recognition. The cost was great, but they refused to die. They made sure every enemy paid with screams and fire. They fought not for victory, but for memory. Every fallen city was marked, every lost ship named, every betrayal recorded. Even when the last defense broke and Earth fell silent, the humans made sure they were remembered. They sent one final message across the stars. We remember. Then, silence. The galaxy told a different story. They called it a security mission, a painful but needed action to preserve peace. They erased the records. They banned human language from archives. They built walls around history. And they told the younger races that humans had destroyed themselves, that they were wild, too violent, too emotional, too chaotic to survive in a peaceful galaxy. No one questioned the story. No one dared, until the black ships came back. Now the files are returning. The truth rising from the ashes like fire given breath. One of the recovered files showed the Battle of Helix Reach. 30 human ships faced a fleet of 500. They knew they would not win, so they programmed their vessels to explode in perfect timing. The enemy fleet vanished in a ball of white light. That system has never recovered. Another file revealed the names of politicians who agreed to the final strike on Earth in secret meetings. They smiled as they signed the order. Their faces are now being broadcast on every major network by the black ships. Even their descendants feel the heat of shame. Old military log show how human medics saved enemy soldiers even while being hunted. How human diplomats begged for peace until their last breath. How human engineers built escape paths for civilians even as bombs rained above them. These are not the stories the galaxy was told. These are not the stories leaders wanted remembered. But the humans remembered. They remembered every scar, every name, every broken promise, every empty hand. And now they are telling their side. Not with guns, not yet, but with truth. And truth cuts deeper than blades. Entire planets are protesting. Academies are updating their history records. Young citizens are asking questions. Why were we lied to? Why do we fear them? Why do we silence them? The old powers are shaking. Because truth is a kind of war too. And this war is just beginning. In a private room on Zurin Prime, the grandson of a famous war hero reads a file dropped by a black drone. It shows his grandfather not as a hero, but as a butcher. He drops the file and falls to his knees. He whispers to himself they knew. They always knew. Somewhere across the stars a child asks her father who were the humans. And the father does not answer right away. Because to speak of them is to speak of shame. The kind that never fades. The kind that waits. Because the humans may have lost the battle, but they won the memory. And now, the memory is waking up. It began quietly, as most great changes do. Not with fire or thunder, or warships in the sky. But with a whisper, a signal, a flicker in the dark. Across the galaxy, black ships continued to appear in low orbit above important planets. They made no noise, sent no commands, caused no damage. They simply watched. And then, they delivered judgment. Each ship dropped a single capsule. Always the same size, always the same shape. Each one contained a file. Each file had a name. And each name came with truth. Leaders, criminals, traitors, cowards, monsters, all exposed. Files once erased, now returned to light. Files that could not be denied. Because they came with voice recordings, battle footage, genetic stamps, confirmed signatures, and facial scans. Proof beyond doubt. Some names were expected, some were already hated. But others were heroes, icons, legends of peace. Now exposed as liars. The people saw the truth, and the truth did not ask for permission. Riots began on 400 planets within the first week. Not led by humans, but by the betrayed, the misled, the angry. Citizens demanded justice, apologies, answers. The black ships said nothing. They just kept delivering more. One file at a time. One truth at a time. One aim at a time. And with each drop came the same final message. We are not here to conquer. We are here to correct. The message appeared on walls, screens, buildings, and minds. Yes, minds. Some species began to hear the message inside their thoughts. Not painful, not loud. Just present. Like a heartbeat. It would come at night, or in dreams, or in silence. A soft voice saying, "We remember." On the mining world of Tellus, a boy who had never seen Earth stood in his home, staring at the sky. A black ship hovered above like a star that refused to shine. The boy's father called it a ghost. But the boy said he heard music from it, low and sad and beautiful. The next day, their governor was arrested after a file revealed his part in human slavery. No trial was needed. The file had everything. Across the stars, leaders began to fall not by force, but by truth. Not a single human soldier had appeared, and yet no army could match their reach. The galaxy's greatest weapon had become its greatest weakness. Memory. On the moon city of Eritan, a group of scholars unlocked one of the oldest capsules. Inside was a hologram. It showed Earth in her final days. Skies full of ash, oceans boiling, mountains shaking with fire. But through the smoke, human voices rose in unity. Not screaming, not crying. Singing. A song in a language long dead, but now alive again. It played in every corner of the moon. And when it ended, the people did not move for hours. They just stood and listened and wept. The council tried to block the signals, but nothing worked. Each block failed. Each firewall collapsed. The truth was a river, and the dam had broken. In hidden corners of the galaxy, new voices rose. Voices that had waited in silence for centuries. Old human allies once forced into hiding. Colonies that had vanished without a trace. Now returning, revealing themselves one by one. Human descendants born in secret, living in shadows, watching, preparing. Some had alien blood, some had none. But they all shared the same fire, the same memory. And now they were waking up. A ship known only as the Ashlight appeared over a cold planet in the Norn system. No weapons, no crew, just a beacon. The beacon repeated a message in the common tongue. This planet once belonged to Earth. Now it belongs to truth. The local government tried to deny it, but the black ship above projected an old treaty signed in human script. Date, coordinates, signatures, proof. The people walked out of the cities and welcomed the ship with torches and silence. The flag of Earth was raised by children who had never seen the planet. They did not know the full story, but they knew something had returned. On a space station orbiting Gavilan Prime, a former soldier named Rith stood before a black capsule with trembling hands. He had once led attacks against human refugees during the Great War. He had forgotten, but the capsule had not. It played footage of him shouting, giving orders, firing into the dark. Then it played footage of the survivors. Children, women, elders covered in dust and blood. No voice accused him. No punishment was ordered. The file ended with 4 words. "We do not forget." Rith turned himself in the next morning. He asked for no lawyer. The people were stunned, not just by his actions, but by their own silence for so long. The humans had awakened something more than anger. They had awakened conscience. On the farming world of Sura fields, once filled with fruit, now held banners with human faces. Not as enemies, not as invaders, but as witnesses. People lit candles, placed flowers, whispered words they did not understand. Because the truth is not always loud. Sometimes it walks slowly. Sometimes it arrives in silence. But once it enters the heart, it never leaves. The galaxy was no longer ruled by laws or guns or gold. It was ruled by memory, and memory had chosen its voice. In the deepest part of space, a station, long abandoned, blinked to life. A human station. It sent a message across every known language. Simple and clear. We never left. We only watched. And now we move. Not to destroy, but to awaken. You built your world on lies. We built ours on loss. Now the stars will know both. A child on the desert world of Marn whispered the message in her sleep, though no one had taught her the words. Her parents listened and did not speak. Because somehow they knew. Somehow they all knew. The awakening had begun. It began with fire, not the kind that burns buildings or forests, but the fire that lives in hearts. The kind of fire that sleeps for generations, waiting for a reason to rise again. And rise it did. The humans had waited long enough. For weeks they had sent messages, files, names, truth. Now they sent judgment. The first target was a forgotten moon orbiting the twin stars of Caurex. Once the site of a secret weapons lab during the war. The facility had been hidden, buried, protected under layers of denial. But the black ships knew. They came without sound, without threat, without warning. And then the sky opened, not with missiles or bombs, but with light. A beam of pure white covered the entire moon. Sensors failed, communications went silent, power grids collapsed in seconds. When the light vanished, the lab was gone. Not destroyed, erased. Not a single piece of metal remained. Not a single scream was heard. Just silence. A message appeared across every screen in the sector. We saw what you did here. We remember. We do not forgive. Panic followed, but the humans did not stop. They moved across the stars with purpose and precision. They did not touch civilians. They did not harm the innocent. They came only for the guilty. And the guilty knew who they were. On the planet Viral, a former admiral of the Unified Command woke to find a black cube floating above his home. He had once ordered the destruction of a human convoy full of refugees. He called it strategic elimination. The cube played the recording of his own words, his own laughter, his own pride. Then it projected the faces of those who died. And finally, it played their names one by one. The admiral collapsed. He was not arrested. He was not judged. He was simply left with the truth. Within days, he disappeared. His house was empty, his ships were untouched. But his guilt echoed. Again, no soldier appeared. No shot was fired. But justice had been delivered. Across the galaxy, black ships hovered like shadows over capitals, research centers, military bases. Each one brought a memory, and each memory brought reckoning. The galaxy began to shift. Worlds that once cheered the fall of Earth now held silent vigils. Empires that once hunted humans now opened archives once locked by fear. Young voices rose demanding truth. Old leaders hid behind old lies. But lies were now dust, because the humans had returned not with hate, but with history. And history was heavier than any weapon. One by one, secrets spilled. Mass graves on dead moons. Hidden prisons once used to break human minds. Financial trails showing the profit made from human suffering. The humans shared everything. Not just their pain, but their knowledge. How they survived. How they grew. How they waited. In the quiet corners of the stars, they had built a network. Not of machines, but of memory. Not of warships, but of watchers. People. Spies. Descendants. All waiting. All remembering. Now activated. Now awake. In the high towers of the Rill dynasty, the Empress herself stood before a crowd of billions. She was known as the Iron Voice, strong, proud, never bending. But today she bent. She stepped forward and admitted what her ancestors had done. How they betrayed their human allies. How they lied. How they erased history. She offered no excuse, only truth. She ended her speech with words once used by the humans themselves. Never again. Some cheered, some cried, but all listened, because the reckoning was not about revenge. It was about balance, about truth being heavier than silence. In the orbit of Gliver Station, a black ship opened for the first time. Inside was not a weapon, not a soldier, but a single chair and a single figure. Human, wearing simple clothes, unarmed, unshaken. She stepped forward and addressed the council. Her voice was clear, strong, soft. She said, "We are not here to burn your worlds. We are here to remind you what they cost us. You feared our anger, but you should have feared our memory, because memory does not sleep. And now, you must carry it too." The council sat in silence. No word spoken, because no words were enough. From that day, forward black ships were not chased away. They were welcomed, as reminders, as watchers, as warnings. Not one human demanded land or power or tribute. They asked for one thing only: truth. They wanted the children of the galaxy to know what had happened, to learn it, to carry it, so that it never happened again. And slowly, it began. New history books were written. Memorials were raised. Old graves were honored. Apologies were given. Some genuine, some forced, but all spoken. In the great library of Vorex, the largest file ever made was uploaded. A full record of the war, written by humans, backed by proof, signed by every race that once denied them. Its title was simple: The Reckoning. And at the end of it, a message: do not forget us, because we did not forget you. Across the stars, the black ships began to move again. This time, not with warning, but with peace. Some left tokens, seeds, cures, machines, gifts of knowledge. To those who stood for truth, to those who helped, to those who believed, because not all were enemies. Some had risked their lives to save human children. Some had hidden survivors. Some had spoken truth even when it cost them everything. They were remembered too. The reckoning was complete, not through war, but through memory, not through fire, but through light. And though the stars still turned, and empires still fought, and greed still breathed, one thing had changed forever. The galaxy had learned that truth cannot be buried. And when humans remember, the universe listens. The stars were calm again, but not the same, because silence after truth is never the silence of before. Across the galaxy, change had begun slow at first, like a river finding new paths, but steady and strong. The black ships no longer hovered as warnings. They had become symbols not of fear, but of memory. Some worlds painted them on buildings, others crafted small statues and placed them in city squares, as if to say, "We remember." But remembering was not enough, not anymore. The humans had not come to rebuild old empires, they had come to build something new. They called it the Accord. Not a government, not a council, not a military force, but a promise. It began with 12 planets, 12 races, 12 leaders who once stood on different sides of the war. Now they stood together. Each one had lost something during the Great Silence. Now they chose not to lose truth again. The Accord had no capital, no single voice, no supreme power. Instead, it had libraries, ships, storytellers, voices trained to travel and share what had been hidden. Every new child born in the galaxy would grow hearing the truth, not as guilt, but as wisdom. The humans offered their knowledge, not weapons, but systems, not dominance, but design, ways to clean water in desert worlds, ways to grow food in frozen ones, ways to heal, to learn, to share. Many were surprised. They expected fire, but received seeds. They expected revenge, but received vision. But still not all trusted. In the dark corners of space, old powers whispered. They said humans would rise again in blood, not light. They warned of domination, cloaked as peace. They trained in secret hiding ships, building armies, just in case. And the humans knew. They heard the whispers. They saw the shadows. But they did not strike first. Instead, they sent one message: "We see you. We will not strike unless we must. But if we must, you will remember why the stars shook." The warning was clear and simple. It was enough. For now, on the world of Linvar, where children once played near ruins of old war machines, a school was built. Inside, every wall held a name, a story, a piece of the past. No history was hidden. Even the dark parts were told. And the children listened. They asked questions. They cried. They grew. One young boy of Aurelian with blue eyes and silver skin raised his hand and asked why did they hurt the humans. His teacher paused and then said, "Fear makes people cruel, but truth makes them brave." And so the child became brave. He told stories to his parents, to his neighbors. Soon a small light grew in that town. One day, a human storyteller visited. He listened to the child and smiled. He handed him a token, a small stone with an ancient symbol. It was not a gift of power. It was a gift of hope. On another planet, a meeting was held. Thousands attended from every part of the galaxy. The hall was not grand. It was simple: wood, stone, air, and light. No guards, no weapons, only trust. A human stood at the front and said, "We do not want to rule, we want to walk beside." Some nodded, some wept, some remained silent, but none left. Later, an old general who once led attacks against Earth approached the human and said, "I still carry shame." The human replied, "Carry truth. Instead, it is lighter and lasts longer." And the general cried, not out of pain, but release. In the stars, a new kind of ship was built, not for war, but for learning. The Archive Fleet. Each ship held history, stories, songs, names. No guns, no shields, only memory. They traveled planet to planet, landing in cities, towns, even small villages. People gathered to listen, to learn, to remember. It became an honor to host the archive. Some gave gifts. Some shared their own stories, even ones not about humans. Because now every story mattered. Because now every voice counted. This was the new order, an order of remembrance, of unity without control, of peace without silence. And still the humans watched, not to control, but to protect, because they knew the cost of forgetting, because they knew how fast stars could burn when no one watched the fire. The black ships still moved, but they moved slower now, peacefully, not as shadows, but as guardians. Some became homes, some became schools, some simply drifted with no crew but full of light. And people followed, not in fear, but in wonder. In time, the name of Earth was no longer spoken in hushed tones. It became a place of pilgrimage, ruined but sacred, a reminder of what was lost and what was found again. New settlements rose near the old ruins, built with care, with silence, with love. Each stone placed not to rebuild, but to honor. And from those stones came gardens, not wild but planned, designed to bloom in colors never seen before. One plant was called Memory Vine. It changed color with the sun, just like the humans. It adapted. It survived. It remembered. In the great sky above Earth, a single ship hovered, larger than any built before. Black, silent, not moving. It bore one message on its side: never again. No one knew who sent it, or how, or why it stayed, but it became a symbol, a star that did not burn, but glowed, softly, always. The universe had not changed overnight. Old evils still breathed, old wounds still bled, but something stronger had grown: understanding, forgiveness, memory. And as new stars were born, as new children opened their eyes for the first time, they saw a sky not of fear, but of connection, of stories, of second chances, because the humans had returned not to conquer, but to remind, not to take, but to give. And in that giving, they gave the stars something they had never truly known before: hope.